Welcome back to the Trail and Ultra Running Training Podcast. My name is Will Frantz. I'm a strength coach, running coach, and the whole goal of this podcast is to help you run a little better and perform better so we can all have fun out on the trails. And if you like this information, I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe or leave a rating or review, or arguably even better, just share it with somebody so that we can spread more, hopefully good running information out into the world. So if you go do that, thank you. I really appreciate it. Anyway, spring energy, right? This is an insane thing that has been going on over the past couple months. If you're not caught up, if you don't know what's been going on in the spring energy world of things, a Reddit thread a little while ago, somebody noted that they dehydrated stuff from spring energy, and they calculated how much weight was there, and it was really physically impossible for there to be the amount of carbs in their awesome sauce gel as was stated on the package. They stated that there were 45 grams of carbs, and when you dehydrate something and it's only I think it was 16 or something grams of weight, you can't have 45 grams of carbs because the math just doesn't work out. I might be messing up those numbers from the original Reddit thread, but it doesn't matter because Jason Koop bought some packs by himself and sent it to an actual lab analysis where they put it in a bomb called calorimeter, calculated how many calories were in the gel, and turns out there were a lot fewer. There were 16 to 18 grams of carbs in that gel. And then he did this with a couple others, including the Canterbury and the Hill Aid, and they were also short. So this is just nuts. And I think there are a couple lessons to be learned here, where for one, if something like awesome sauce feels too good to be true, then it might be. And I think this is just a spot where we all got duped because we wanted to believe that a handheld gel packet might possibly have that many calories and carbohydrates in it, especially when it is made of things that we can all pronounce, right? However, and if you're watching this on video, I have little demos here. If not, I'll describe it to you. But right here, we have a pile of sugar, and this is 45 grams of sugar, and it's about a palmful. And over here, we have a pile of Scratch's Super Fuel, also 45 grams, also about a palmful. And when you take two of the most highly concentrated forms of carbohydrate and they barely fit in your palm, it is unreasonable to expect that a very similarly sized gel made of supposedly natural foods and applesauce it is unreasonable to believe that that is going to have the same amount of carbohydrates in it. So in this front, I think we can learn that if it feels too good to be true, it probably is, and we might just be a little more on that side of things as we're constantly being marketed to and all this bullshit on the internet. But the other gels were reasonable. I think they claimed 17 and 21 grams of carbs, and they both had 10-ish. Again, I'm not here to give you the exact numbers. They're on Jason Koop's website if you want them. But they had about 10. And a 20-gram carbohydrate gel, especially of that size, is really reasonable because they're really big. And goo, also tested, has about 20 grams in it, and those are smaller. So for these, they were just lying. And we should all be pissed about the lies. And they put out a response that there's inconsistencies in their manufacturing process. Well, the levels of inconsistency that would have to be to go from the claimed level of carbohydrate to the actual level of carbohydrate would have led to incredible taste changes over the year. You can't just have your carbohydrates and not notice a flavor difference. You can't just have your carbohydrates and notice a texture difference. It would have had there would have been messages all over the place, like Spring's clearly changed their formula because these things have changed, and it just never happened. So they were never there. It wasn't inconsistencies in manufacturing. It was just bullshit. And this is illegal. Like, there's only supposed to be a 20% differentiation between actual content in food and what is reported on a nutrition label. And it's really reasonable to have some level of differentiation, because when you do make things in batches, when you make large concoctions and then put them into smaller packets, there will be some deviation. And as a result, like, we are going to end up with differences. But 30, 40, 50% difference is insane. And we just shouldn't accept this as okay, right? There's so many reasons this is illegal. Like, what about diabetic runners? What if someone was using these things to support their fueling and they ended up in some severe health issues because they couldn't manage their glucose appropriately because they didn't know how much they were taking in? What about runners with a history of red S, using this to help them recover and make sure they're fueling appropriately, and then they end up in a similar situation because they're already on this borderline of overtraining and then push themselves back into this space? It is not just a thing that has led countless people to underperform and not waste, because I don't think any training is wasted, but you know what I mean. Like, when you work 3, 6, 12 months towards pulling on a race and you underperform and you think you did everything right and you did the math and you check it and you try to figure it out, like, it makes you feel crazy. I have absolutely seen this on my end. Like, I have a couple people I can think of who I coached who did all the numbers and they bonked and I don't quite know why. Well, I do now, and it's not a long list because I haven't been doing this that long, if we're being really honest. In a couple years, and most of my athletes don't really choose to fuel with Spring. But if I have a list of anybody, then people who've been doing this a long time probably have a list like as long as their arm. And it's just unreasonable. But it's not just the underperformance. It's not just the health stuff. It's just this symbol of the bullshit that we deal with in the health and fitness industry all the time. Spring made their bones completely on this appeal to naturalism. And this is a huge problem in the fitness industry and life in general, but we're the ones that tend to propagate this thing, where it has led to everything from the rise of barefoot shoes, because that's how we naturally ran for years. Not wrong, but also not fully honest either, as we've discussed on other podcasts. People also didn't run for 100 miles on asphalt, and we can accept that there may be some usefulness between using a barefoot shoe during parts of your life and then running shoes for running. It also led to the rise of things like paleo, keto, and whatever else, and just this constant appeal to whatever is natural being somehow inherently better always leads to harm. And there's obviously a complicated conversation to be had here, where, yeah, you probably shouldn't eat nothing but Cheetos. You probably shouldn't always wear steel-toed elevated boots. The foot is an amazing thing, and it can run barefoot for a reason, and it should be strong. We should eat foods that have fiber and nutrients and aren't just made in the lab. But moralizing these things and running our entire fitness system based on what is natural, whatever the hell that means, and what is not, is just insanity. And it always leads to this, one of the conversations I had with people with Spring is, I don't know what it is. It just sits better in my gut than anything else. And I don't know how many people have had that conversation, but I've had that a few times, right? And of course it did, because you weren't doing gut training, because an awesome sauce had, I think, 35% of the stated calories in it. It sits better in your gut because it's mostly water and it's mildly helping you stay hydrated, and you didn't have to process any carbohydrates. And then it sits better in your gut until it doesn't, because as soon as you end up really underfueled, then you have gut problems on the other end. But of course it sits better because you didn't have to do gut training, because your gut didn't have to learn to increase its intake of carbohydrates. It was nothing but bullshit. And if we are on the lookout for some of these fallacies, like the appeal to naturalism, like this constant quest to prey on people and just use this predatory marketing to support companies, I think could be a little better off. And again, when we look at something like awesome sauce, it should have been easy to see. Like, it really should have. When you have a handful of sugar versus a handful of applesauce, even with rice powder in it, it shouldn't have been a question. And I think all of us just get so used to accepting these things, because we should be able to trust our packaging. That's the fucking problem. But we get so used to accepting these things that we don't think about them at all. And in some ways it's a positive that they lied so much about awesome sauce that somebody, Coop, checked their other products, and it led to learning that their entire company is built on a fallacy. Anyway, I know this was a tirade. I will do another one of these on something a little more, actionable, I guess. But don't use Spring, probably, unless you want to support a company that has built their entire business on lies and charges you $4 for a small packet of applesauce that you could get at the store for $1, I think. Anyway, have a great rest of your day. Have some fun on the trails. Fuel well, hydrate well, take care of yourself, and I hope you have a great, great run. Thank you again for listening to the Trail and Ultra Running Training Podcast. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Just a reminder, nothing you hear on this podcast is medical advice, and you should always speak with a medical professional before making changes to your training or your nutrition. If you enjoyed the podcast or found it helpful, please leave a rating or review. It tells the algorithm robots that people like it, and that means more people will hear it. Or even better, just share it with someone who you think would benefit. If you prefer a video version, head to the Trail and Ultra Running Training Group on Facebook, or check out the Mountain Goat Endurance Coaching YouTube channel. Thank you again, and I hope you have a great next run.